One of these nights, good Eagles song, bad Eagles song.
Very bad.
That's what's playing right now at the Gateway Lounge.
One of their worst.
Okay. What are their best in your mind?
Lion Eyes is probably my favorite Eagles song.
Interesting. Okay.
But I'm not a big Eagles fan.
I know you're not, and which probably makes you an even bigger fan of the movie The Big Lebowski, just because of.
I don't hate him as
line.
much as the dude does.
Right. Neither do I. I went. We've both been to an Eagles concert.
We have.
Several years ago. That was when I was surprised to hear that you were actually more excited, maybe, to see Jimmy Buffett over the Eagles.
Right.
Or you enjoyed Jimmy Buffett more than the Eagles at the show at Target Field. I got to see them in Omaha a bit ago, but it's one of those few concerts where, love him or hate him, you knew every song that they were playing.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Yeah, I'm sure
you knew
I did.
every song.
I'm sure I did.
Yeah. I had a good time. I'm not like an Eagles zealot, but it was they still had some decent craftsmanship, put on a good show. People liked it.
Vince Gill was playing with them when we were there.
Same here.
That was kind of cool.
Yes, that was cool.
I'm not even a Vince Gill fan either, but he's really talented. And
yeah. And
I know they brought, was it Glenn Fry's son was playing?
Yes,
and
they did that at mine.
Yeah.
And he looked just like Glenn from the 70s when Glenn had long hair. Can't remember the kid's name, so it was, brought a tear to some people's eye. I don't know how good of a singer he actually was, but it was good stage candy. Happy Election Day, happy draft day for the NBA. I know that's just huge on our radar. Most of the hour is going to be spent on NBA draft talk. Just kidding. And happy belated Father's Day.
Thank you.
How'd that go? Looked like you were up at the lake.
We were up at the lake for the weekend, and then we came back, and it was just me and Jen and my dad and his wife at the lake, so kind of a quiet weekend, and we all came back Sunday to celebrate Father's Day with Dad, and it was a good time.
Oh, okay. He didn't go up there to the lake with you guys.
Yeah, he did.
We did.
The four of us were there, and then we all came back to Sioux Falls so the whole family could get together in
gotcha.
Sioux Falls.
Very good.
Yeah.
And you're going on vacation next week? Is that going to be lakey time?
There will be some of that. I won't be there the whole time, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. We've got a lot to unpack today. There's no real big, dominant, whopper topic.
Giannis got traded. That was a pretty big deal.
Giannis got traded, and
Julius
the Wolves,
Randle got traded.
Yes, Julius Randle got traded. I mean, we could start there if you want, but let's start with the dead guy of the week because we haven't done one in a long time. And I thought this was a big one for especially you and I that have talked about the shows this guy created and produced forever.
Oh.
James Burrows,
Yeah.
The brain behind Cheers, which you contend is the best sitcom of all time. Taxi, Will and Grace, very groundbreaking and funny show. Frasier, he moved on from Cheers right to Frasier, just two back-to-back all-timers. And was also, I guess, behind the Mary Tyler Moore Show. I mean, goodness, that's quite a legacy. He provided America with a lot of enjoyable hours on the couch.
Boy, Will and Grace sure is a zit on his legacy, but I guess other than that...
Why, you didn't think it was funny?
No, that show was awful.
Okay.
Deborah Messing's one of the worst actresses of all time, and that was a terrible character, and I hope she sees this.
Well, naturally, I feel a little bit differently about the show. I wasn't a zealot of that either, but I enjoyed it, and I loved the story about how, at that time, late 90s,
I get it.
You had two openly gay characters on TV. They weren't the first, but it was like two. It was almost like it was a gay show. You don't even label it like it was just a lot about gay. And
no wonder I didn't like it.
Leslie Jordan creeps in, and he's hilarious. And but I don't think it felt very forced. I thought it was funny, and he was pressured by network executives right from the start to kind of de-gay it.
Tone down the gay.
And he's like, no.
This was after Ellen, right?
Right after Ellen.
Yeah.
Right after Ellen lost her whole, basically, life and career for coming out on her show. But anyway, as it turns out, there's stories out there everywhere just about how impactful that was, that allowed people... The kind of thing, it is Pride Month. You literally save some lives just by normalizing that on television, where people think and see it's okay. I can live that true life instead of hiding and being depressed.
Well, to be clear, that has nothing to do with why I disliked it.
I understand. I wasn't arguing with you. I was
just saying I want to come off like a bigot. I just hated Deborah Messing.
It was mainly her, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean... Shocker, my husband really likes to watch Will and Grace and old clips and the fights between Jack and what's her face. Did you like the high pitched lady that me the Beaker lady that was that had all the one liners?
Was that Megan Mullally?
Yeah, Megan Mullally.
I like Megan Mullally.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if you're still with us and still listening to hear to this edition of Nobody's Listening Anyway, thanks. Your weight will be paid off. Cheers and Taxi and Friends. I know you loved that one too.
That one too.
Apparently, yes.
Barf. Worst show in TV.
I'm with you on that one. He did not do Seinfeld. That was, of course, Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. All right. So Wolves get rid of Julius Randle. I think there's not much to argue with here. It felt like addition by subtraction, which a lot of people were thinking and noticing as he disappeared and only appeared in the worst possible ways during both of the playoff series, but particularly the Spurs series. And because of aprons and we don't the complex structure of the NBA and teams' salaries, we're not going to get into the weeds about what you can do for all of Julius Randle's money.
I mean, they didn't get anything for him. It was clearly a salary dump. They're clearing cap space.
Yes.
So, it's a good player to give away for nothing. And, over the big sample size, he was pretty good. The small sample size, the recent playoffs, he wasn't very good. So I don't think it's without risk, and who knows how Ant's going to respond to it or whatever. There's sort of conflicting reports out there already. But it allows them, I think, to re-sign the guard they acquired during the season. I can't pronounce his name.
Ayo Dosunmu.
Yeah, there you go.
In fact, they did. 5 years, $112 million.
Oh, they already did it.
Yeah, they did it. So, I mean, it was a three-way trade with the Bulls, and they got back a guy who averages 12 points a game, Nick Claxton from the Bulls.
Oh, I didn't see they got him.
Minnesota gets the 35th pick in the draft.
Down a few spots in the draft.
Yeah, so they won't get a first-round pick tonight, it appears, because again, they trade Julius Randle to the Nets, and along with it goes the Wolves' 28th pick. So, again, there's plenty of other places, podcasts, articles where we can get into the weeds about aprons and what they can afford, but this indirectly allowed them to be able to afford the signing of Dosunmu, which is interesting because the Wolves lacked a true point guard, and they still kind of do. But but Dosunmu and Ant will probably, unless more deals get made here, split some time bringing the ball up the floor. But this elevates Dosunmu, I would think, to a starter status.
Well, it elevates Naz Reid to a starter.
It does. That's the big one right there. Yeah. And Jaden McDaniel feels like untouchable. Don't let that guy go. He's young. He's in his prime. Defense, moxie. And then, of course, the big one looming, like who might be next, is Rudy Gobert. Because how much longer is his shelf life as a top-rate defender that he's worth all the dough? And according to Darren Wolfson, Doogie, and his insiders, executives, and a scout that he knows in the NBA, the Wolves are not going to touch Rudy Gobert for this upcoming season.
That would have been my hunch, too.
Yeah. And how do you feel about that? Because it's kind of,
he's got another year in him.
Yeah.
But are you going to be able to make the Wolves have kind of clearly risen to where they're a second-tier fringe championship contender, but they still seem a ways away from being a team that can win the finals.
Yeah.
And subtracting Julius Randle and, what are you going to add? Because, again, like you said, Gobert, even if he is still good, he's a year older. And he's a limited player. He's a good player, but he's a limited player. I don't know. I mean, I hate to say it, but it almost feels to me like if they're going to become a championship team, the impetus is just on Anthony Edwards to get better. He's great. I'm not saying he's not doing enough, but I think the best way for them to be an NBA championship contender is he's got to be at a Michael Jordan, a Kobe Bryant level, not just a Clyde Drexler level or whatever he's playing at right now.
I think he has it in him. He has shown some great flashes of that.
We've heard it. When he first kind of started coming into his own, you heard a lot of real basketball junkies say, "Oh, he's the closest thing to a Michael Jordan in today's NBA." Well, if that's the case, that means nobody's close to Michael Jordan because he's not even close to Michael Jordan. Yeah.
Again, flashes, the kinds of things he can do.
He's great. He's great.
His style of play, mid-range game. Yeah. Ability to glide and hang in the air and utilize the backboard and
three-point shooting.
Yeah. He kind of has, and the same sort of Jordan machismo to him, for lack of a better word. But, yeah, I mean, he's not the full body of work and doesn't register as frequently to make him a consistent top level yet. I mean, he's still, I think, been in the league for only 6 years, but by this point, Jordan and Kobe Bryant in their careers had already flourished and matured to their full potential. By the way, Chris Johnson, our resident Sioux Falls Wolves diehard with the coach's mind, calls it a massive overpay for DeSumo. He does not like the 22.5 per year that DeSumo was going to get, even though this is a guy that's shown flashes. He had that 43-point game against the Nuggets, which followed like a 30-point game. CJ says he could have let Randall walk last year and signed NAW, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, for $15 million a year, and he's better than Io. So you could have gotten a better player than Io for $7 million less. But that feels like, to me, I love CJ. I would never try to get into an argument with him about the X's and O's and even the Jimmies and the Joes about what make the Wolves better. But that feels kind of like revisionist history type of stuff.
A little bit.
Like, we didn't know last year Julius Randle was going to be this big of a flop in the playoffs. So,
and how much is $7 million year to year? You know, I mean, it's not nothing.
Yeah. So there go the Wolves, and that's the big deal. And the draft is tonight, and it feels like it's not. You know, who knows if there's something else that happens that tilts the scales, that the Wolves might have something up their sleeve. The exciting prospect was that maybe they do a deal with Dallas. With sending away Julius Randle to get Kyrie Irving, and it certainly looks like Kyrie Irving is not happening. And I don't know if that's an equal trade value, but those would be the two main guys in the deal. And I was always kind of lukewarm on that idea.
Yeah,
I mean, because Kyrie Irving doesn't play half the time, it feels like.
He's older and he's crazy.
He's hurt.
Yeah. Not a big fan of that.
All right. Any other big NBA things that are floating your boat besides Giannis to the Heat? Does that really...
I mean,
you
know, there was serious talk about the Wolves trading for Giannis at some point, and it seemed like that had pretty clearly fallen off the radar. Just some of the first cursory things I read, it seems like a lot of people think it was a good deal for the Bucks, that they got a pretty good return. So we'll see.
All right. The Twins, meanwhile, have Shohei Ohtani in town, and the Dodgers, and he promptly on the second pitch steps on up and hits a home run to open the series last night. Then Byron Buxton answers in the bottom of the first. We do have those highlights, and ties the game at 1. And then the only other run in the game came from a home run from Freddie Freeman in the top of the 6th, 423 feet to center field, and that was it. 2-1 Dodgers. And so the stars came out to play last night, and that was about it. The pitchers did the rest of the work. I'm going to guess you watched. I mean, this is it feels like, for the Twins, even if they're going nowhere, feels like these are some of the best games to watch this year when you're playing those guys.
Yeah, I knew the Dodgers came to Target Field this year. I didn't realize it was on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because I wanted to go. You know, I wanted to take Arthur, see Shohei play in person, and even then when I saw it was Monday through Wednesday, I was like, God, can I find a way to make it work? And I'm too busy, too much stuff. You know, none of them are even day games. You know, they're all night games, so that won't work out. So we did watch a game. I made Arthur sit and watch it with me. And sure enough, second pitch of the game, Shohei hits a bomb, then Buxton hits a bomb. I don't know if you know this, but I guess like the Target Field workers are on strike. There's something going on in Minneapolis. So they could only open half the gates to Target Field.
Oh, boy.
Which meant that it took like 3 times as long for people to get into the stadium. Half the fans missed Shohei's homer because it was the second pitch of the game.
Yeah.
And because they were so understaffed, they couldn't get people through the lines. I would have been so furious if I'd have driven up just basically to see Shohei, and then he hits a 430-foot homer on the second pitch of the game, and I miss it because it. Whew.
Yeah, because I think most fans would get to that game earlier than normal. Just
it probably wouldn't have happened to me. I probably would have been there. I'm usually there like
you
early.
You like to watch batting practice.
Well, you have to get there really early to watch batting practice, but just I like to get there early.
Yeah, and how many?
You're driving from 4 hours away,
right?
You know, if I lived in Minneapolis, I wouldn't get there an hour and a half early. But if you drive 4 hours, you want to spend more than 2.5 inside the ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I wonder how many fans knew that there was a strike and that only half the gates were being utilized.
The only reason I know about it is I saw a lot of people bitching about it on Twitter. Yeah. And then there were other people saying, well, you should have got there on time.
You know what would have happened to me, probably. Unless I would have known about the concession worker thing. Sometimes I do try. But And I don't know if that's a poll ads thing. I mean, they're going on strikes. So I don't know if that's a Major League Baseball thing or what. But, yeah, there still were 35,000 that showed up for that game. And, yeah, after Ohtani, you
sounded like half of them were Dodgers fans. But.
After the Ohtani thing, you got to see 2 entire runs. I went to Boston. My Fenway Park, crossed it off the bucket list experience, was it just happened to be against the Dodgers. We were already going to Boston that weekend. Gilbert had an old friend that was getting married, so that was our Boston trip, whether the Red Sox were in town or not. Not only were they in town, but the Dodgers were in town, and we went to the Friday night game. And Dodger fans, they're everywhere. They travel well, and they make your games seem like an event for sure. And I was watching them on Friday night. This will shock you that Gilbert, my husband, who could go months without watching a sporting event and not even notice or care or try, for some reason he was on Friday evening. I had gone out for a walk. I come back in. It's like 9:30 at night. He's got the Orioles game on TV for some reason.
Must have been a good-looking dude pitching for one of those teams.
I was like, what are you watching this for? And so we had this conversation last week about, Buxton being like it's Byron Buxton a bunch of sacks of potatoes with this Twins lineup, and is baseball sport where besides pitchers you really can just watch, wait for one person to play, as opposed to football and basketball.
Yeah, he wasn't in the lineup the game we went to, which was highly disappointing.
Yeah, as opposed to basketball and football, where the stars are generally playing the whole game.
Twins are second in the American League in runs scored.
We can get to that in a moment. Yeah,
I mean, they are a collection of stiffs largely, but some of them are hot lately and scoring runs. For a second, I was like, Gilbert, even I don't really want to watch a humdrum. I know it's the Dodgers, but there's a million things we could watch. I told you why I was watching.
So I was like, well, fine. I like baseball. I'm at 50 baseball games this summer with the Canaries, but I don't watch the Twins because they're not on Hulu, which is the carrier I watch. I'm not paying for the damn app. They're not. Anyway, so we watched the last 4 innings, and we were paid off by a Ohtani home run to get a rally going to the 9th inning. What do you know? He gets up to bat, everybody gets up and goes crazy, and the suspense was built to where it was a payoff. And so there's 2 more nights of that. Hopefully, if he does play and is in the lineup. I don't know if he's. I think I heard he might be pitching one of the next couple nights.
I don't know.
Okay.
I know because of the way the interleague schedule has been redone.
Yeah.
You play everybody now, so that means the Twins will go to Chavez next year, and in theory, the Dodgers would come back in 28, and hopefully Shohei's still on the Dodgers then, and hopefully that series is on a weekend.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to go.
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible. I went to a Twins-Angels game when Shohei was playing and just didn't think that much of it at the time, but I don't remember.
Okay.
I don't think so.
The Twins, talk about a roller coaster season, and I don't know what you're going to think of this, and maybe you saw it because Aaron Gleeman's kind of one of the top guys that covers the team. I think he's very good on social media and not in a flashy way. Just he provides things like this. Here's the Twins' swings this year. They started 11-7. Then they went 5-16, just a horrible stretch. Then they go 11-5. Then they go 3-10. Then they go 8-3, and then they just lost last night after going through their latest, kind of good burst, and that adds up to 38-42.
3.5 games out of first.
Does that sound like amazing swings or pretty normal for baseball?
No, that's pretty unusual to be that back and forth. I mean, it to me that illustrates why the fans are so mad. Why they're so upset with the Pohlads. They didn't do anything in the offseason. You traded Louis Varland for nothing. I mean, I shouldn't say nothing. They didn't get anything back for him, or they did get something back for him, but they didn't need to trade him. He's arguably the best closer in the American League right now. Don't you think a couple decent relievers would probably make a difference on this team? They're 3.5 games out of first, and they're doing it with a literal hodgepodge of cast-offs in the bullpen. I mean, they didn't go out and get anybody of any renown. It was literally who's out there that nobody else wants, and we'll put together an entire bullpen out of that. And it hasn't been very good, but it hasn't been terrible. I think largely you have to give credit to Derek Shelton and their coaching staff for standing on their head to try to make this work. Having Louis Varland would help. Having 1 or 2 decent free agent relievers that they could have got out would have helped. I mean, if Pablo Lopez doesn't get hurt, that obviously would make a big difference too, and that's not their fault. But, to go into the season and say, well, we think it's a contending team. I guess you were right. It is kind of a contending team because of how bad the American League Central is. But if you'd have done anything, you might be in first place right now.
Yeah.
And I don't think they can hold on. I mean, it helps that the rest of the division is bad, but they're in a hot stretch right now, and they're still 5 games under 500. I mean, that puts them on pace to be, about an 85-loss team. That's not good.
Yay.
We're supposed to be excited about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just I keep saying, like, the fans had every right to be pissed off and to continue to be pissed off. Credit to the players that are there. It's not their fault. And they're busting their ass. They're playing hard. They're scoring runs. They're competing. Derek Shelton, I think, is doing a nice job, but they're all doing it with one hand tied behind their back.
Yeah, they are 3.5 games back of the AL Central lead. It's a terrible division, as we all know. They're only 2 games back of the last wild card spot at this moment. So it's just kind of...
it's funny. I've been saying over and over, like before the season started, you kept asking me, are you going to watch? Are you interested? And I was like, as long as they're just, kind of sort of competing, I'll be interested, and I kind of watch even when I'm not. But this has been harder. Being normally when they're 3.5 games out of first,
yeah.
I'm pretty into it.
Yeah.
Like if they're 3.5 games out of first with a record of 48-40, I'm right there.
Yeah.
But when they're 5 games under 500, it's just kind of like this is fake.
It was like
contention.
Fool's gold,
yeah.
or we're just
yeah.
kind of hanging along,
yeah.
kicking the can down the road.
I'm still watching the games because it's summer, it's baseball season, but taking them serious as a contender, no, not really.
Hey, Tiff, do you mind just taking the sound down just a little bit? Please, thank you very much. I appreciate it. We're at the Gateway Lounge, by the way, with wonderful service. We always get Tiffany every week, and it's kind of like we better do that Tuesday window just so we can have Tiffany. She's a sweetheart. Well, there's the Twins. There's the hometown team, the Sioux Falls Canaries. Quick update on them. They're back in town this Friday, Saturday, Sunday, off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is when it kind of heats up at the ballpark. People start really showing up with good weather,
School's out,
better weather. And a lot of the baseball and softball leagues are done. They kind of kick the promotions into a little bit higher of a gear. Do some of the fun ones, like we're going to have Friday night's the night. They're probably going to paint my head green, and I get to be an alien. You were at that one.
I remember that one.
Last week. It's one of my most favorite and least favorite games of the year because I hate that, but it's a fun night. Area 51 night, Pokemon night. So I don't know if Arthur's into Pokemon. Is he into Pokemon?
A little.
Okay, we have that on Saturday night. The Birds are 19-16. They just won 2 of 3 on the road in the Dallas area. They're still stitching things together without their 2 biggest sluggers. Not necessarily their best hitters, but actually
yes,
Josh Raywalt
hitters.
Is their best hitter average-wise. He's the best hitter in the league average-wise. He's not just a slugger. He's batting .381. But he has missed the last 9 games. I think he's going to be back pretty soon. Jabari Henry's going to be out at least a little longer, a week, maybe 2. But the Birds are 3rd in the league in runs scored. They score 6.5 runs a game. They get 9.5 hits a game. And as a team, they average .285. So when you go out to the Bird cage, you're probably going to see a lot of hits, both from the Canaries and the opposition, like old times. So they're good. They're hanging in there. They're only a game back of their division lead because they're in a division.
It looked like they were just about to go in the tank and fall apart with the injuries, and then they went on a nice little salvage run here recently. They're not going down without a fight.
No, so lots to happen in the coming weeks and months. Mike Hart also just holding steady, one of the top 10 hitters in the league in a few different categories. Did you watch any of the CWS? Were you ever into the College World Series?
I've watched. I mean, I covered the regional in Nebraska, and I've watched a few games since then. I haven't watched any of them like inning 1 through 9.
Okay.
When it's been on TV, I've been watching it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, the whole College World Series was on TV, so.
But I mean, like when I've been in front of a TV.
Yeah.
And like,
okay.
I watched the Alabama-Texas game. I watched Oklahoma. Was it Tennessee? I don't remember. I watched a few games.
Is that high level stuff to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's weird. I don't know if people know, MLB's in this labor negotiation, and the latest proposal from management is to ban high school players from the draft.
Wow.
That is earth-shattering.
What?
That is a huge, huge, huge sea change in the entire way the sport of baseball would be run. That's a major, major deal. And part of the reason they're saying they want to do it, and I don't necessarily believe them, but part of the reason they're saying is college baseball's gotten so much better that this can, MLB and college baseball can help each other, growing the game by them developing players. College baseball has gotten a lot better, I think. NIL has helped, because kids want to play college baseball longer now. For a long, long time, a lot of number one overall draft picks have been high school kids that then go to the minors for 5 years. If they change that to where you can't get drafted out of high school, well, obviously a ton of great players are going to have to go to college for 2 years. Joe Mauer would have had to go to college. Bryce Harper would have had to go to college. All these guys that were number one picks that became Mike Trout, you go on and on. Would that be good for college baseball? Yeah. Would that increase the visibility of college baseball? Yeah. Would that make college baseball, the College World Series, a bigger deal? I think so. But the idea that, I always hear from college baseball dorks that, if ESPN would only cover us better, we'd be just as big as March Madness and college football. No. And the main reason is because college baseball is not a summer sport. It's a spring sport because it is tied to college, going to class. Yes. These are students.
Yes.
So the season's over for most teams in May. A few teams are still playing right now in June.
Right.
But it will never, ever become what those other ones are because the season is different. Baseball, Major League Baseball, is a summer sport. It is the national pastime because in June, July, and August, it's the only thing going on.
Right.
So I used to kind of be opposed to college baseball and watching it. I just didn't really like the culture of it and how different it is from MLB. And I've softened on that a little bit, in part because I think it's gotten better. I think that those two versions of the game have gotten closer to each other. But I will never be as big a college baseball fan as I am a college football fan, as big a college baseball fan as I am a Major League Baseball fan. I'm rooting for the sport, but I don't think even if this goes through, this proposal to change the draft, and I don't know that it will, I don't know how much that will change things for the average fan.
That is mind-blowing. You never think of baseball as a sport where you're not allowing guys to go straight into the league. That's the one sport where that happens.
And the reason is because you have 5 levels of minor league baseball. They don't in college or in basketball and football.
Yes.
They go straight from college to the pros.
Yes.
You don't need 4 years of minor leagues.
Yeah.
Baseball's hard.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is. It is a sport of failure. I have heard, you'll not be shocked by this, but in Omaha and Lincoln, it's a saturated sports talk market. There's just so many sports talk shows now.
Right.
Stations and shows, and of course now with the internet, more shows like this one that aren't even on the radio. But I remember that it always came up this time of year. Partly what you just brought up is, why is this thing ending in June? Let's expand this and let's get it going throughout the summer. It'll grow the sport. It'll make it better, and have the World Series in August before football starts. What would you have said to that?
You can't. I mean, I know that you can't, but
yeah,
it's a college sport. They're supposed to be in class. They need a summer vacation.
The NCAA has to uphold its integrity somehow.
Somewhat.
And actually, baseball players, I don't think this is a huge illumination to most people, but we rarely talk college baseball. Even at schools like Nebraska, I think not everybody's on full-time scholarship. Like, you actually do have students who are definitely great players and trying to help their teams win, but who are on partial. I don't know if that's true.
Well,
at that level,
it has been true forever.
Yeah,
as recently.
I know there's NIL involved in that.
Maybe
now,
Cordell can Google what the allows number of scholarships for a college Division I college baseball team is now, because they either changed it or they announced that you could change it a few years ago. Because as recently as like 5 years ago, even in Division I, SEC, Big Ten, you had 11.7 scholarships per team.
That's what I thought.
And so you're the Texas Longhorns. You have access to the best baseball players available in the country, and probably none of them are getting full rides.
Right.
Because you have 11 scholarships to divvy up amongst 30 players.
Yeah.
Maybe if someone's so good, all right, you get a full ride. Or he gets good enough grades that you can give him a partial academic, that's whatever school has to do. But that's been a big, big part of it. And that, again, goes into the NCAA and Major League Baseball maybe trying to work to build up college baseball. What's another way you can do that? Maybe offer some freaking scholarships.
Yeah.
Why was it only 11 for all those years? I get that in the Upper Midwest or Division II. Like, the Augustana Vikings don't need 11 baseball scholarships. But the Texas Longhorns, Alabama Crimson Tide, Nebraska Cornhuskers can't give out 28 full rides to their baseball team. Mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, but because of...
House settlement made it so they can have 34 full scholarships.
34 now.
House settlement.
It's the same with the roster.
Okay. Just another result of the House settlement. That was...
now, I don't know how many schools are implementing that yet or doing it, but they will now have the ability to offer 34.
34.
Think 11, from 11 to 34. Think about how much that fundamentally changes the sport.
Yeah, and mostly, I mean, the top way would be it's going to be better, right? You would think it would be the quality would be higher.
More kids will choose to go to college rather than, I mean, if you're a number 1 draft pick and you got $millions signing bonus, you're probably going to take that. But if you're a 9th or 12th round pick and your signing bonus is in the 5 figures, I'll go to college.
Yeah.
Especially you'll get a scholarship and potentially NIL money.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big the NIL is in baseball, but probably a lot bigger.
It's big in the SEC. It's big in the Big Ten.
Sure it is. Yeah, it's as big as any school wants to make it. You got to have baseball donors, people who specifically pitch in for that. And, Texas Tech softball, we know that they had $1 million pitcher, and they made it all the way to the championship game for a second straight year. We could take things to recruiting in our neck of the woods. Last week, we mentioned your series of stories you did on these incoming transfers for South Dakota State.
Basketball,
yes, and how it made a lot of them filled in.
They filled a lot of their holes.
Spots that were weaknesses. You did a story about, you did one story on all the guys that Eric Peterson has assembled. I'm talking to PD. For more details on that and other things later this week. But what's your big ball of wax from what's been going on down there? Because he had to pretty much put together an entirely new team.
Right. I think he did a pretty good job. I mean, it looks like a pretty good collection of dudes. We'll see how they fit together. That's the biggest thing. And, it's one thing when you're bringing in 4 or 5 new guys and you have 4 or 5 established guys. And USD has some dudes coming back, but most of them didn't play a ton. Side note, I think some of the guys that left should have stayed when you see where they landed. Grass isn't always greener, dudes, but, they bring in an elite shooter. They bring in a good big. They bring in a point guard who was on a national championship team. It looks like a pretty good collection of guys. Peterson and I didn't talk about this, but he's kind of coaching for his job.
Of course.
So I'm sure there was some pressure on him to go out and get the best players that he could. And I think he did. One of them, it turns out, isn't coming. He had some personal things come up. I think his name was, I can't remember, the guy who wasn't on the list. But anyway, to bring in 9 new guys, but I think 9 jumped in the portal, that left. Yep. So that's the new reality now. And, you look around the Summit League, every single all-conference player in the Summit League portal that didn't graduate.
Yeah.
So it is what it is.
Yeah, and it always is what it is, and will be until there's any sort of reform on NIL or the easy maneuverability, the easy way to transfer. But I think in USD's case, you add to the fact that his contract wasn't renewed. We kind of talked about that when we learned the news, that how much does that mean anymore, because it's not as big of a hit on your recruiting because players move so often and can all the time anymore.
It sucks for him now more than anything.
But I think so our point back then in saying that this is not as big of a deal as it used to be, like you have to have a coach secured for 3 or 4 years to assure the guys he's recruiting that they're going to be playing for him.
It's not as big of a deal for recruiting.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as much of a strike against a kid wanting to come there. Like, I don't know if the coach is going to be here. Dude, I don't know if most of those players don't want to stay at USD.
For more than a year.
Right. If they're going to USD, it's because they're already thinking where the next places they can go after that.
And if they
that's true of SDSU, NDSU, all those mid-major schools. And I'm not saying I don't have any sympathy for Eric Peterson or any other coach in that situation, but it did always feel a little self-serving when they would use it. Well, you have to give me an extension because I can't recruit anybody if they don't know I'm going to be here. Well, you could kind of use that excuse into perpetuity, and then you end up with having to buy someone out or whatever. Yeah. So I see both sides of it, but you're not wrong. Like, now that all these players are essentially one-year free agents anyway, who cares? Eric Peterson cares.
Yes.
Because he would like the security of, knowing he's going to be there. Probably harder for him to bring in assistant coaches because they don't know. I don't know. And it's harder to recruit high school kids. So I'm not saying there isn't an impact, but it's definitely different.
I would guess more people left his program than would have with that partly being the deal is
maybe
that helped him lose some players and assistants, but he lost some assistants.
Yeah, because they gotta I gotta have a job lined up.
Those guys like to hitch wagons. At the same time, I should remember people sometimes when you lose assistants or when assistants leave, you know this as well as I do, covering SDSU football and basketball closely. Is some assistants move on to move up a ladder, but also because you kind of want that on your resume. Like, you don't want to be an assistant. A lot of these guys don't want to be an assistant for any longer than 3 or 4 years at places.
At least at the same place, yeah.
They'll even make lateral moves just to show they're going and getting different kinds of training and with different kinds of coaches and different leagues. It's just kind of a common thing amongst assistants.
Or you get kind of stuck like Clink or somebody like that,
So this is the first time I will have talked to Eric on Happy Hour about all this since the end of the season, so I'm looking forward to that later in the week. Meanwhile, staying with Summit League hoops, Trent and I talked about this a lot, Trent Singer and I, on Thursday, but the Summit League TV and streaming deal, we're not surprised. It stays with exactly who it was. You're going to get 7 to 9 regular season games on CBS Sports Network, which is 7 to 9 more than you would get on any ESPN channel as far as nationally, quote-unquote, nationally televised games go. And then you get 2 more. You get 4 instead of 2 in the Summit League tournament. You get both men's semifinal games and then both the men's and women's championship game. And so it was very clear from having a little correspondence with both John Schemmel and Justin Selt. Their presidents vote on this, but mainly it's them telling the presidents what to do. That both of those are South Dakota ADs plus 5 of the 6 others, with nobody voting against it, to keep the status quo, and that's just half the deal. That's just the TV part. The streaming is going to stay with Midco Sports Plus and their quote-unquote Summit League network, and will not go back to ESPN Plus, where you used to be able to get the games and where you can still find Missouri Valley football. What did you make of all that?
That's what I expected. That's what I was told was going to happen, and I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't necessarily like it either, but guess why they're doing it?
Money.
They have to take what pays them the most money.
Yeah.
Creates the most revenue.
Yes.
I cannot fault them for that. They are a mid-major league, which as far as basketball is concerned, things are trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Attendance is down. Interest is down because all the best players are leaving. Mid-major basketball is suffering. So they have to pocket every penny they can get.
Yep.
So
and according to one of those ADs, there is 0 revenue that comes from the ESPN Plus streaming deal. 0. Whereas there's automatic upfront revenue from the CBS Sports Network deal and from the Midco Sports Network deal. As far as there's money coming from both because it's an upfront deal. The league will get this much money to.
They will have fewer eyeballs on their product than they would at ESPN. But it's kind of like that old thing. What are you going to pay me to do this? Oh, don't you just want to do it for the exposure? It's like, no, I need money.
Yeah.
The Summit League needs money. Yes, ESPN gets them in front of more eyeballs. They need the money.
Well, it's how much fewer eyeballs. I agree with the base concept, and it's literally the bottom line. Because there's only 2 ways the schools get money from the league. It's the multimedia rights deal streaming that we're talking about, and the conference basketball tournament. Those are the only 2 money makers. And again, when you're these schools and you're scratching and clawing and scraping and you're losing all your best players all the time to bigger leagues and more NIL money, you need all the dollars you can get to survive the arms race just amongst your peers. And
right.
So this is a stream of revenue that you wouldn't have if you were with ESPN. Having said that, I looked it up casually. It's hard to measure how many eyeballs are on your game now, because it used to look up cable subscribers and households that carry these channels, and we know that's not everything now. Having said that, I mean, there's roughly 70 million households that have ESPN2, which was the men's championship game was on. According to my little search, there's about 60 million that have CBS Sports Network. So it's not a lot less that carry CBS Sports Network. You're looking at me with distinct.
I don't buy that. Are you sure?
I could look it up again. And
I don't know anybody that has CBS Sports
I do
Network.
on Hulu. Trent says he does on YouTube TV.
All right.
It's part of if you get the sports the extra sports packages. I think they're on a lot of extra tier, like add-ons to the basic. Where obviously ESPN2 comes with all basic cable services. ESPNU's always been an add-on as well, and that's what the women's game is in. So if you say one game a year, basically there's one game a year on ESPN2, just the men's championship game, would that validate that much better exposure for the league compared to 7 to 9 regular season games plus 2 more tournament games and the women's game?
Not if it doesn't bring any money in,
network.
No. You know.
Okay, yeah. The Jackrabbits, I check your Twitter account to see before the shows just to see what you think is relevant.
You can plan the show, yeah, I know.
No, I do more than check your Twitter account to plan the show. And a lot more. But the Jacks I'm looking to see what you're interested in. And so you don't retweet every Jackrabbit football commit, but you did this one over the last 24 hours.
I had heard that it was a big one, and also, like, you can kind of tell that there's a little bit of a concerted effort within the department. Like, when every single assistant coach retweeted it at the same time, they don't do that for everybody, you know. So that was pretty telling. I didn't see if he was a 3-star or if he had a star rating, but, I mean, he had legit FBS offers. He had an offer from James Madison. And that, to me, is really significant because we got people up north saying no one's ever going to play FCS football again now that these schools have access to the college football playoff. James Madison was in the college football playoff.
Yes.
And this dude chose the Jacks over James Madison.
Yeah.
So that's...
Do you remember his name off the top of your head?
It was Lorenz Tate or something?
Lorenz Pratt.
Lorenz Pratt.
And
he's a cornerback.
His name, not his Twitter handle, but his name on Twitter is Lorenz Pratt, 3-star cornerback.
I'd say he's a 3-star cornerback then.
So that's the latest from that. And as always,
Miami, Ohio offered him.
Yeah.
Eastern Washington.
USD, so they beat out the Yotes, and Illinois State national runner-up. So there you go.
Maybe I put Eastern Washington. Maybe it was Eastern Michigan. That might have been a typo on my part. I think it was Eastern Michigan, actually.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
That would make a little more sense.
Yeah,
but,
I think it was Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, and as we do from time to time, not that most of you Jackrabbit hardcores don't know this, but our friends at Jacks Illustrated do a nice job of comprehensive information and opinion on their Twitter account of keeping tabs on all the latest Jackrabbit recruits. A couple more before we head out the door. By the way, Dusty May leaving Michigan for the Mavs, and don't need to dig deep into that, but I did.
Can't be a surprise.
A lot of people don't like Jay Billis because he's this erudite kind of snobby Duke egghead, but he's
correct.
He's tough to he's a tough personality to like. But I do like him on this issue, and he just tweeted, the coach's portal is always open. Oh, you don't like that?
I mean,
2 years at Michigan, gone. So guys like him can never complain about.
It's one thing when guys
come and go.
are bouncing from college program to college program, but going to the NBA is a different animal. And also, look what college basketball is right now. And don't give me that, coaches have been able to leave for whenever they want, and now players can too. Like, there is nowhere ever, there's no sport, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, the NBA, where you have year-to-year free agency. Everything is just a one-year contract for every player. It's a free-for-all every year. Don't act like coaches don't have a right to say, this sucks. This is stupid. And from what I gathered, Dusty May didn't publicly say anything, but privately told everybody, like, yeah, that's why I'm leaving. I don't want to do this shit anymore. There's no rules. I don't know who's coming, who's going. I just won a national championship. I'm out of here. I'm going to the NBA.
It's a valid reason to leave, to not do it. And he was mentioning right after he won the national championship that he basically got all the celebrations, and then you get to the team hotel and there's a kind of a function for you, and you have a couple beers and you celebrate with your family and your boosters, and then you get 2 hours of sleep, and then you got to wake up and do the morning TV car wash and do a bunch of interviews, and then when those are done, you don't go back to sleep or get to go on vacation. It's immediately, the portal's now open, and got to re-recruit all our current players and go out and start. It's like the busiest 2-week stretch of recruiting. So, I can see how that would suck compared to being an NBA coach where you're not. I mean, some coaches have more say than others in their roster, but generally your roster's locked in, and you got front office people do a lot of that stuff.
A couple of years ago, I had a conversation with a coaching friend of mine who's in the NFL, who had started in college, worked his way to the NFL, and I asked him, did you ever see yourself coaching the NFL? And he said, no, I didn't. And he's like, and now I can never see myself going back because I can spend time with my family. I have a life. Yes, the NFL season from like late July through February, it's busy as hell. But then after the Super Bowl or whenever our season ends until training camp, like I have a life. I can go home and hang out with my family and be a dad. And later I was relating that same story to another coaching friend of mine who was in college at the time. And the look on his face when I told him that, like I could just see him kind of go, oh, like he had just assumed everybody's suffering the same way I am, And I mean, there's people out there who can coach football and have a life. Like what? Like I could just see that like how much that affected him. And I'm sure there are plenty of reasons why certain people don't want to get into the NFL. It's a different beast. You're dealing with millionaire adults who aren't going to listen to you necessarily as much as college is. It's a completely different culture. It's a completely different thing. And everybody in the football world played college football where almost nobody played in the NFL. So it maybe is hard to break that glass ceiling or whatever. But, if college sports continues the way it is, I think you're going to see a hell of a lot more coaches saying, why am I doing this when I could go do that?
And no one's going to feel sorry too much for coaches, partly because at that level, Dusty May's level, Kalen DeBoer's level, because of the extraordinary, absurd amounts of money they get paid, and will have generational wealth. Their kids won't have to work if they don't want to, and their kids' kids. But that's part of the payment, right? I mean, first of all, the money's already there from so many boosters and the TV money. But also, you're kind of getting paid to be miserable.
You don't have to feel sorry for them to understand what they're doing. I don't feel sorry for any Big Ten, ACC, Big 12 basketball coach because, like you said, they have a cool job and they make millions and millions of dollars. But I get why they would say, that looks better. I want to go do that.
They put in some time for that money is what I'm saying.
That too.
All right, especially the higher the level you get. Stu Whitney's book. That was our whole show yesterday, an hour on Stu's new book about Bob Burns, the war hero and revolutionary, legendary football coach here in South Dakota. So Stu was on for an hour to talk about it yesterday, so we encourage people to listen to that conversation. The conversation, like the book itself, was fun and easy flowing because he had such a crazy interesting life and such a fun character, and you, like me, read the book and you wrote a review about it. And what'd you think?
Well, I was going to do just kind of a author interview like so many other people have done, like you essentially did, and Stu actually texted me and he's like, hey, like I'm certainly willing to be interviewed by you, but 6 people have already written this story. Like, what if you just did a review, because no one's really done that? And I was like, well, you sure? What if I don't like it?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay. And so he got me a copy, and I read it in about, as I mentioned in the review, the first few pages are a little slow going. But once I got through that, I read it in about 2 or 3 sittings, and it's 300 pages. It was a page turner once it got going. When I was writing the review, which I would encourage people to read, because I thought I'm pleased with it. My opening line of the review originally, I scratched it out, was something like, they don't make them like Bob Burns anymore. I ended up scratching that. It's a little cliched, but they don't. And that's kind of the gist of why Stu's doing this book, why I think it's worth reading. There have been a dozen stories about football coaches, millions. There have been a million stories about World War II, not to minimize it, but those stories are kind of a dime a dozen, But as Stu and I were kind of talking about when we were having lunch last week was, World War II is getting pushed further and further and further into the rearview mirror. When we were growing up, there were World War II veterans walking around everywhere. Yep. It wasn't that far into the past.
Right. And certainly there was a market for World War II consumption. Not that it's an important thing, but it was also marketable.
Right.
People were interested in it. Saving Private Ryan, as you mentioned, and Patton, and all kinds of books.
Well, all those people are dying now.
Yeah.
I Googled it actually yesterday. There are something like 30,000 World War II veterans still alive, which I thought was actually a high number, given that those people are all at least 98, 99 years old or something. But I think there were 16 million people that served, so 31,000 out of 16 million or whatever. Well, those people aren't going to be with us very much longer. So I think it's important that stories like Bob Burns' story are being told, for younger generations to be like, this really happened.
Yeah.
There were really dudes who were just growing up on the farm in South Dakota who got a phone call one day and said, you're going to the Army and we're going to teach you how to jump out of planes and fight Nazis with a rifle and a sword, basically. And then you either die, which many of his friends and colleagues did, or you survive, and then you just, go back home and live your life just like nothing happened. And that is still, to me, as someone who is old enough to remember a lot of that stuff, very surreal and really, really hard to even, when I watched a movie like Saving Private Ryan or read books or about any of them, think of those people. We've all seen the famous photo from D-Day where the guys are it's taken from, these kids are in a boat. They're 18, 19 years old, and they're all about to get their heads blown off. I mean, you see a photo like that, and you try to put yourself in those shoes. What would I be thinking? How scared would I be? How would I be able to think, to function, to focus on my assignment, my job?
I mean, the opening scene in Saving Private Ryan. I mean, one of the most famous opening scenes in movie history, where you're just like, I saw it at the theater where the sounds are booming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, I can't imagine being forced to go do that.
Right. I can't either. We're probably never going to have a situation like that again.
Yes. I hope so.
But that's why I think there's a lot of value in carrying on those stories and humanizing them too. It's one thing to watch Saving Private Ryan and go, there's a bunch of actors or guys who are been dead for 100 years or whatever. Like, no, here's this guy who was O'Gorman's football coach, who was Augie's football coach, who was USD's football coach, who you say Bob Burns to someone over the age of 50 in South Dakota, and they go, oh, yeah, the football coach. They don't go, oh, yeah, the guy that killed some Nazis in hand-to-hand combat in the 40s. Yeah. And that's wild to me, and it's amazing. And it's not just that. I mean, I mentioned he was a boxer, and he was a star football player, and he picked out the prettiest girl in school and said, she's going to be mine, and he went and got her. I mean, that's living a life, man. That's the American dream.
Yeah.
With some pretty scary adversity thrown into it. So I was always, vaguely aware of Bob Burns, growing up, the Bob Burns Dakota Bowl. Steve Keeter, inherited that program from Bob Burns, and Steve was always very, very intentional about making sure he invoked the name Bob Burns every chance that he got. So you always sort of, if you were someone my age who was invested in the sports and you knew who he was. But before I read this book, I was kind of like, okay, how much do I really know about this guy? And getting that fuller picture. Like I said to Stu, I don't know how much of a audience there is for a book like this because the guy's been dead for 26 years. But anyone who picks it up on a whim is gonna enjoy the book.
It's a page turner, and even you and I both agreed, and you told Stu this, and I almost did yesterday. I mean, the start of it is a lot of stuff about Burns's, the people that came before him, and
setting up his sort of family history,
depicting life in the 1880s, 1890s, and early 1900s, and some people find that interesting because that's such a long time ago, and none of us can imagine.
I mean, there were certainly parts of it that were, as far as he's had an uncle who was, a bootlegger
in
and
Sioux City,
and
basically a gangster.
The
guy who killed a guy. Stuff you see in movies. So, but all that stuff. Maybe when you start reading, both of us are kind of going, when are we going to get to the war and football stuff? But you read that and you go, okay, this explains how he became such a grade A, sort of larger than life character who always kind of went for it. I mean, he was kind of always the guy that went for it. The girl, the battle scene stuff, you're gonna learn in that. Like, it sometimes it literally backfired, and he had a couple of notable failures in his life, but he bounced back up from them because he went after something else. So your column was a good read. The book is certainly worth the read. And Cordell and I were talking about this yesterday, by the way. The choice of what's on the cover of the book to catch people's eye, is it better? You certainly think the highlight of the book was the war stuff, and I would agree. But would you rather put just a guy who looks like any other guy that's going to combat in an army uniform? Or would you? I've got it right here. Or would you put together a picture of kind of a goofy-looking old football coach hoisted on the arms of his players? A much more exciting scene.
I don't know if Stu even got to choose.
But it's just Oh, really? I don't know if I don't know if authors do choose or not. But anyway,
there are some compelling photos in there.
Yeah.
Of him with his company men and
yeah.
The one of him being carried off the field by his team. Yeah.
But the cover and the back cover are of the soldier himself. Here, I'm going to hold it up for Cordell for a second. But I think it's fitting that it ended up being a soldier on the cover there. And I liked the title, The Great Burns, because it was a sarcastic
nickname that his future wife gave him.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got asked out by the Great Burns.
Yes.
Yeah,
and an underlying theme of the whole book was this was a sarcastic, joking, one-liner, funniest guy a lot of people who knew him ever met in their lives. Last one. Linda Cohn's retiring. One of the last of the old OGs from the 90s of SportsCenter when SportsCenter was SportsCenter. It's I don't even know if people like Cordell's age, mid to late 20s, understand the cultural impact, what SportsCenter was 20, 30 years ago. But nobody did more SportsCenters than Linda Cohn, 34 years. And she is done pretty soon. I think one of these next couple weeks is her last week. Any thoughts on Linda or the OG era?
She was a pro's pro.
Yeah.
Did it a long time, and it's hard to kind of survive those generational jumps because so many of them have a shtick, and then your shtick doesn't translate from generation to generation.
Right.
She didn't have a shtick. She just read the news and was good at it, and that's why she survived that. Yeah. And for people who don't know, a phenomenal hockey player.
Yeah, and a huge hockey fan.
Yeah.
And actually, another thing was I heard a recent podcast with her where she talked about something that I kind of only subconsciously noticed when I watched her, because I watched SportsCenter all the time, obviously. That was my life goal, was to be on SportsCenter at the time in my teens. And she really was like a fan when she was watching this, without being over the top. A lot of these guys had their funny one-liners and catchphrases, and certainly some of them were very talented and entertaining. But her entertainment was, yes, she was a pro's pro, but also you could tell, like when she's watching Ken Griffey Jr. hit a 400-foot home run, she's wowed by it, like we are when we watch and go, wow. She's not underscoring it with what's a good line for this, like this.
Right.
And by the way, I recommend a podcast. Rich Eisen, another one of those OGs, who's the NFL Network guy.
He doesn't go back as far as Linda Cohn does.
He got there 4 years after she did. So
really? I would have thought it was more than that.
Yeah. He's doing a first season, a 6-parter, 1 hour, 1.5 hour interviews with some of these SportsCenter OGs. So Dan Patrick, Chris Berman, Linda Cohn's one of them.
How's he going to condense that into a half hour?
No, 1 to 1, 60 to 90 minutes each.
Oh, okay.
Conversations.
I was going to say.
The Dan Patrick one, which was the leadoff, was fantastic. Dan Patrick had great stories, including anchoring with Olbermann, but also taking Stuart Scott to task on the basketball court, which was probably made a lot of people go like, good, I'm glad somebody shut Stuart Scott up. And the Linda Cohn one, the Chris Berman one, it depends on how much you liked Chris Berman. I mean, he gives great stuff just about how infantile the network was when it started, like below cable access.
There's still
that
that famous clip of like one of his first years doing it where he's shoving fans out of the way.
Yeah.
Like a 25-year-old Chris Berman's like, get out of here, I'm trying to do a show.
But the studio stuff, like there were rats, the cables went out to trailers and there were rats everywhere. And they, of course, they had the Australian rules football stuff and tape-delayed college football. It's interesting, but Berman's, for me, is always kind of like, okay, it's just kind of like, for a while he was the biggest thing going, and you're like, okay, I'm kind of tired of that shtick. And that's kind of how the conversation went. But Linda Cohn's was very good. All right, that's it. Thanks for playing.
I won't see you next week. I'll be on vacation.
Enjoy your vacation.
Enjoy your whatever you do.
Well earned. Yeah.
Thank you, John.
Well, I know. What else am I going to do besides read your Twitter now? For video producer Cordell Wright, I'm John. Cheers.